What's up guys, Bjorn here. Today we're taking a look at the Elemental Shaman Mage Tower challenge. This is another easy one, probably one of the easiest Imp Mother challenges there are, so if you're looking for the mount or if you're just looking to get a quick one done on a fun character, I think the Elemental Shaman is a great option. So, before getting into the video, I would really appreciate it if you guys would maybe consider subscribing down below, maybe even leaving a like if this video helped you guys. Okay, so the first thing we're taking a look at here is the preparations before you go in there. If you just want to see the kill VOD and the mechanics, then you can skip ahead in the video. The first thing we're gonna take a look at is the talent build, and there are three different options here for you, I think. Either you can go the full AoE build, and if you go the full AoE build, then you will obviously have a ton of damage for all of the imps. You can kill both Agatha and the imps at the same time with Earthquake, with Stormkeeper Chain Lightning, Aftershock is really strong, and Storm LA Burst Window is really good with Lust as well. So I think this build has a lot of merit in there. It's probably the easiest build to complete the challenge with. It suits most scenarios and it is pretty easy to play. Now, the main problem with this build is that you will maybe lack some single target damage, and your rotation might feel a little bit lackluster, and you will struggle maybe a little bit with movement because you're lacking Ice Fury. So if you don't want to go the full AoE build, you could obviously go the full single target build, which looks something like this. You have Echo of the Elements, Elemental Blast, Master of the Elements, Ice Fury, and this will help you with the movement because of Ice Fury, but you will also have a lot of extra globals to fit in, like Elemental Blast, like Ice Fury. You will have double Lava Burst, and you will probably in reality struggle just as much with movement here as you did in the full AoE build. So I actually didn't like this either, and I ended up going for a bit of a hybrid build. So I said, screw Elemental Blast, I'm going Aftershock here. It's a little bit more passive, it's a little bit more movement friendly, but I'm keeping Echo of the Elements, Ice Fury and Master of the Elements, because frankly I just think it's more fun to play Elemental Shaman this way, and Ice Fury helped me a lot with killing the Imp Servants. It also helped me a lot with movement, so I personally ended up with this build. But like I said, I think the full AoE build with Storm Melee and Aftershock, Earth and Rage, or even Echo of the Elements, I think that AoE build is probably a little bit better, probably a little bit easier. When it comes to gear, I'm not really doing anything out of the ordinary whatsoever. I just have my old 9.0 gear on and nothing crazy there whatsoever. So when it comes to the macros, it's a similar story. I think the challenge is easy enough for you to not need really any macros. If you want macros, it would maybe be to interrupt Agatha, right? She's probably the only target you want to interrupt, so you could obviously make an interrupt macro on her. You could also make a target macro for the imp servants that spawn, if you want to kill them ASAP, but I don't really think that's needed, and other than that, you don't really have any major utility you need to use on any specific target. So I think macros are a little bit redundant here. And obviously when it comes to consumables, I only ended up using food, shadow core oil, and nothing else. But obviously potions are gonna help a little bit, and if you want to go all out with augment runes, flasks, unbridled fury potions, or whatever you want, then I'm all yours. But I don't think the challenge needs it in terms of a raw DPS check, and we're gonna see that very shortly in the kill VOD as well, because I am by no means playing perfectly, guys. I'm actually playing pretty damn horribly, but hey, it gets the job done. Okay, so we have the Imp Mother challenge here, and in my opinion this is probably the easiest challenge, along with Fell Totem maybe. This actually took me even less tries than on my Windwalker, and you also gotta consider that I'm fairly rusty on my Elemental Shaman, right? I haven't played it since 9.0, and even then I didn't really play it very much, so I'm a pretty bad LA Shaman. Also, don't take this guide as a guide on how to play LA Shaman by any means. This is more of a quick overview of the encounter and how to beat it on LA Shaman. I play pretty damn horribly in this VOD, so please don't take too many things away from this. So the Imp Mother challenge, similarly to the other challenges, have quite a few mechanics, but a bit like the Fell Totem challenge, there is just a few of them that's really important, and those are ones that you want to keep in mind. So we have the empowerment imps. First of all, it is the very most important mechanic of the fight. Agatha will summon 2 imps at the back of the room. They will run towards her slowly, and once they will reach her, they start channeling and empowering her, giving her energy and HP. So you definitely don't want to let these imps channel at all if you can spare it, right? And if you have them channeling, it's supposed to be the very minimum amount of time. So there are a few different things you can do to deal with these. Now you have the slow totem and also frost shock for slows, right? So what I usually did is I just slow them with frost shock and kill them off as quickly as I could, either with ice fury, lava burst, earth shock, or even flame shock sometimes if I didn't have anything else. Sometimes I also kill them with earthquake, and if you're running the AoE build, you're obviously going to kill them a little bit differently than if you're running the single target build. So this comes down to your talents basically. The most important thing, however, is that you just kill them before they reach her, before they start channeling, and if they start channeling, you can stun them with the stun totem, cap totem. It's really strong. And you could obviously also interrupt their channel, but the problem with that is that you will waste your interrupt. You won't have it for Agatha's Dark Fury cast, which is the only interrupt in the fight otherwise, and that's also a pretty important mechanic. So interrupting that ASAP instead of interrupting the imps is a lot better, and you should just kill the imps or try to CC them when you can. Now, you can obviously also knock them down with Earthquake if you're lucky and stop the channel, so that's another reason for playing the AoE build here. It's pretty damn good at stopping those imps. The other mechanic that's really important, and this might fly on the radar at first for you guys if you're new to this, but it's actually the Plague Imps. So the Plague Imps will, I think they're called Fuming Imps, and they will spawn periodically in the fight. They will run to you, and once they have had aggro on you for a little while, once they've gotten around to moving towards you, they will stop in their place. They will start a channel that's unkickable, and once they finish the channel, they will explode, but they will leave a little plague zone that slows and does AoE on the ground, and that plague zone is permanent for the entire encounter. So already from the very start of the encounter, it's pretty important to manage these plague imps and make them blow up in key locations around the room so that you don't have a ton of AoEs in the middle of the room where you have to run later. So either you could kill the Fuming Imps. I think that's completely fine. You will have enough DPS to kill the encounter and the Fuming Imps, especially if you're playing the AoE build. I think killing the Fuming Imps is a really good idea. If you're playing the singular build and maybe you're worried a little bit about your damage, you might not have enough damage to kill those off, then you could also obviously just stand in a obscure position in the room where you don't really mind there being an AoE later. So this is what I tried to do for the most part at the early stages of the encounter, just like standing in corners of the room in weird places and trying to make the imps blow up in those places. Now, you could also like thunderstorm them away, CC them, stuff like that, but usually it's not that relevant because they will always eventually come back to you and explode anyway. The reason why I mentioned this as one of the most important mechanics is because if you manage this poorly and you have a ton of AoEs in the room in the latter stages of the fight, well, then you will really start to struggle, because phase 2 of this fight is that you'll have to run back and forth in this corridor, in this room that we're standing in right now, and Agatha will teleport from the far end to the back end, from the far end to the back end, back and forth, and there will also be big fiery boulders rolling along the road that you'll have to dodge. So it's quite important to have the room clear, to be able to move quickly in the room, and to just be able to deal with all of those new imps, the balls, the spell casts, without having to restrict your movement too much. Other than that, the other mechanics are pretty straightforward. Agatha will become immune and summon a bunch of imps. You just kill those imps and she is not immune anymore. And then she also has a few other mechanics, including the Dark Fury interrupt that I talked about earlier, that you should just interrupt on cooldown. But as long as you just kill all the imps, the encounter kind of kills itself. There's just one more heads up I want to point out before we get into the kill VOD here. It is that if you find yourself struggling a lot here, if you can never get her down, if it just feels like an endless spawning of imps and her HP isn't really going on, that is most likely because you are not managing the imps with the empowerment very well, right? If you let those imps cast their empowerment spell on her, then she will heal up over and over again, she will gain more fury, it will just become increasingly harder for you to kill the encounter from that point, and it might seem like the encounter is overwhelming you, that it's just impossible, but the reality is that you just have to be quicker on killing those imps, quicker on dealing with those. If you manage to complete the encounter without ever letting an imp cast their empowerment spell, then it's going to become so much easier to actually down this. And even if you let them cast some empowerment spells, it isn't the end of the world. The main thing here is that you shouldn't let them just stand there and channel for multiple seconds. Okay, so let's get into the actual kill VOD. Now, I am not really using any consumables or anything here. I'm just using Shadowcore oil and a bit of food, because the DPS check is very lenient, you don't really struggle with survival, and I didn't want to waste a ton of gold on consumables that I didn't really need. Now, another choice you have is if you want to Bloodlust at pull or in phase 2. Now, phase 2 is a little bit more difficult, but Bloodlusting on pull means that you will have maybe a little bit greater control of your cooldowns, and maybe you'll have also a little bit more uptime on just all of your spells and the haste debuff, because it's easier to pump at the start of the encounter. And I didn't really feel like I needed the lust too hard in phase 2, so I just ended up lusting phase 1. Now, I start out with just doing as much boss damage as possible to get a nice head start. You can use the Stormkeeper to kill the little imps, and then I'm just utilizing my single target build to do a large amount of single target damage here at the start of the encounter, because with Echo of the Elements, with the Master of the Elements, with Ice Fury, it's pretty easy to do a large amount of boss damage early. Now you can see here that I'm still struggling a little bit to kill those imps. If you are running the AoE build there, you will be able to just start keep pummeling boss and just put earthquakes down maybe instead to kill those imps, and it'll go a little bit quicker with a little bit more damage efficiency. But you'll see that with the single target build I also have quite a decent amount of single target damage when those imps are not there. So as the fight is going on here, I'm just trying to stay a bit away from melee so that the fuming imps aren't dying in any awkward positions. You can also consider killing the fuming imps sometimes if you have an easy access to damage for them, but that will obviously also make you have some smaller amount of damage for the other imps. So you can see here that I don't really stop the imps from channeling completely. They do sometimes get a few seconds of channels off, but that is fine in the long run still, even though obviously it would be better with no channels at all. So you can see here that the boss is soon gonna enter his intermission phase already, and I haven't really been in any trouble whatsoever. I don't take any damage, so it's quite a trivial encounter, especially in phase 1. If you are ever dropping low here, I would definitely recommend dropping a healing tide totem, and you could obviously also just healing surge yourself. It isn't the biggest deal, but you should definitely be able to keep yourself alive with just healing tide totem and earth shield here. So you can see the first of the balls starting to come in here, and I did get hit by one before, which was per troll, but obviously it isn't the end of the world. Now here we have a really horrible position of a fuming imp. I mean, for example, I placed a fuming imp AoE in the middle of the room, and this is just going to make it incredibly hard for me to keep casting while simultaneously also trying to dodge those balls. And if I ever have to move closer to the boss than this, it's going to be quite awkward for me. So usually you would probably want to avoid having fuming imps in that position where the AoE is right now. You can see here, for example, I'm trying to place it a little bit more off to the side, where I probably won't move as much, and that is usually a lot better of a position to place a fuming imp in. But, as you can see, without really doing too much of anything except killing all the imps with all of my spells, I am just progressing this encounter pretty quickly, right? She's already at 30% here. You can see that those imps are pretty easy to deal with because I have the AoE chain lightning with the Stormkeeper, and yeah, another set of imp servants, and here, kind of yikes, I get hit by another boulder. I kind of grief a little bit. I'm not the quickest at killing these imps. And yeah, this part of the fight is probably the worst one. I especially dislike it when she's in the other part of the room because it's even more cramped up with the space there. Here you at least have quite a lot of room to maneuver, quite a lot of space to move around in with the fuming imps, with the balls. But once she teleports to the other side, that's when I usually struggled. That's when I usually maybe got hit by a few more balls. Here you'll also have to be real careful to not get knocked out into the green goo there. I almost got hit by a lot of damage and I almost ended up going down. But thankfully I'm kind of tanky as a shaman. I also have astral shift if I would ever need it. It's quite easy to just self-heal if you ever fall down, so you shouldn't really be at any risk of dying here. Now, you can see she teleported, and this is where I will start to struggle a little bit more maybe. It's going to be a bit more tough for me to cast, to have full uptime on my damage while still dodging everything. And you can see that I dropped another pretty bad plague imp there in the middle of the corridor. Thankfully you're ranged as an elemental shaman, right, so you can just stay back here. You don't really need to move forward as I'm doing right now. It's quite a bad idea actually, but I ended up doing it because I was a little bit scared that I would maybe not reach those imps back there with my spells. However, you can see that I end up taking a lot of damage from it. I end up struggling to cast while moving here because there's just so much AoE in the ground. And if I would have managed the fuming imps better, I would not have had this problem right now. I could probably have cast a lot more, tunneled a lot more damage into her, and I would have been a lot better off. Now, this is also where the imps are the most dangerous, right? Because the imp servants will spawn pretty close by, and you will have a ton of other mechanics to deal with while also killing them. So this is where you can really start falling behind on the imps. And this is also where silencing the imps, interrupting them, might start to become a good idea, right? For example, there, I interrupted the imp, even though I might need the interrupt for her shield later on. You also have a 12-second interrupt as a shaman, right? So it isn't as big of a deal as if you actually just accidentally spend an interrupt. And you can also see that now she's very close to dying. I basically just need to finish off these imps that have her shield up. But I miss one little imp to the side here. Now I see it and I try to get that down. But I'm also taking quite a lot of damage here. I'm a little scared that I'm gonna throw the challenge at the very end. So I try to heal up a little bit, but then I finish her off with the Stormkeeper finally. And there we go. So you can see that I didn't play very clean at all. I got hit by a couple of balls. I took a lot of extra damage. I didn't manage my fuming imps very well. And I played a bit of an unconventional talent build, didn't have any consumables basically, and also didn't have any gear. But all in all, still pretty fun actually. I really enjoyed the challenge. I think playing casters in these kind of situations with cramped space, with a lot of ads, can be really fun, can be really challenging as well, and will make you grow a lot as a caster player, right? Usually if you're just playing caster in raid or in dungeons, someone else is tanking for you. You don't really have to think about your positioning too much. You can just press your rotation. But here, you really have to think about your positioning, you really have to think about your movement, and you have to use a lot of utility spells as well. So, personally, I think these challenges are really fun. This one is no exception. And I hope you guys will have fun in here as well. Alright guys, that was the elemental challenge. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from the kill VOD. And I hope you have a ton of fun in there trying it out yourself. I think the Imp Challenge is actually one of the more enjoyable ones, just because of how much movement, how many different ads there are, and it's actually quite a fun and satisfying encounter to complete. If you guys want to see more content like this, more guides, then please consider subscribing. It would really help me out. Maybe even leave a comment or like. If you need any specific help, I am more than willing to help you out. Leave the comments down below. I've also made some other guides for the Mage Tower for some other specs, so if you have a main that you might need some help on, or if you just have some alts that you maybe want to get done before the Mage Tower disappears, then please go check out my other videos. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day in World of Warcraft, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Huh? Oh, you're still here. Well, I'm sorry. I think you should probably go and check out a video maybe over here or somewhere here. You can even subscribe down here. That would be really, really nice. I would highly appreciate that. I'm gonna go snort some more lines. See ya.